Good afternoon and welcome to Across the Fence. I'm Jolie Whitney. The American Revolutionary War began on April 19, 1775, with the Battle of Lexington and Concord. These early morning skirmishes were heralded by none other than Paul Revere, who warned the Minutemen of Massachusetts that, indeed, the British were coming. Revere's midnight ride was memorialized by the poet Henry Wadsworth Longfellow, who nearly a century later penned the Paul Revere's Midnight Ride, which famously begins, "Listen, my children, and you will hear of the midnight ride of Paul Revere." A similar alarm was sounded in Vermont a few weeks later by a lesser-known patriot, or patriots. We'll get into that into a minute. Legend has it that Major Beach, as he would come to be known, ran from Castleton to Shoreham, about 64 miles in less than 24 hours. This effort was crucial to the capture of Fort Ticonderoga only hours later. And this year marks the 250th anniversary of Beach's achievement, which is being remembered on May 9th and 10th in Castleton with reenactments and commemorative runs tracing some of Beach's 64-mile route. Take that, Boston Marathon. And to talk about Vermont's Paul Revere and what's happening in Castleton next week, I'm joined by Tom Hughes, one of the organizers of the event, and he joins us in full regalia. Welcome.
Nice to see you, Jolie.
Well, we're happy to have you on. First, tell me a little bit about your outfit.
Well, I'm trying to be dressed as a civilian resident of the, before it was Vermont, it was called the New Hampshire Grants. So somebody who not in wartime uniform.
Absolutely, and let's, one of the details about this Herculean effort is that they don't really know what Beach covered, so talk about that.
Right, there was the older fellow, Gershom Beach, and his son, Samuel Beach, and then another son or nephew, another Gershom Beach, and exactly who or how many of those three made this run, ridiculously long run.
Absolutely.
In less than 24 hours from Castleton to Rutland to Middlebury to Whiting to the lakeshore in Shoreham. What did the three of them all do it? The historians, the record isn't clear on whether it was Gershom, Samuel, but we just say Major Beach. It's the beach run.
Sure, kind of a catch-all, but I'm sure anyone running 64 miles in one day would like a little help, I'm sure.
Absolutely.
And we're showing a map now of Beach's run, and that one you said is the line there in red, so that was quite a while. Is there any evidence that he rode instead of ran?
We don't, it's such an amazing feat that you have to wonder, was there no horse,
Sure.
for him to use along the way and stuff? But the record doesn't show that that's true. So maybe it's, miraculously he just made it the whole way on foot.
Absolutely, we'll give him credit for that. And your event is happening May 9th and 10th, and it focuses on Ethan Allen. So what was he doing in Castleton in 1775?
Well, he'd just come from Bennington County and town of Bennington. Their events are throughout the first weekend in May, so that's Bennington250.org for that wonderful array of events. And so in 1775, he'd come north because Castleton was the gathering point where they would get their last minute instructions before they just hours later crossed the lake and took Fort Ti and Crown Point the next day.
And for the folks who attend this event, you're going to have a commemorative coin or token. So we're going to put that up on the screen in a second, but remind our viewers what taking Fort Ticonderoga, how that factored into the early days of the Revolutionary War.
Well, Boston Harbor was blockaded by the British in retaliation for the Boston Tea Party. They didn't like that. So New England needed that port reopened, got to get rid of the British. They needed the cannon from these two British forts on Lake Champlain. And so more than having the forts, it was really about getting the cannon from there to Boston.
Absolutely, and then how, for those of us unfamiliar with the Fort Ticonderoga, how did that play out?
Well, imagine, 83 guys sneaking up before dawn on a fort that had 78 cannon. If the British had been ready,
that's almost one cannon each.
If they had known that they were coming and stuff, this would have gone disastrously, but it was a surprise attack. The British didn't know the war had started, and so men with muskets were able to take the fort without anybody being seriously injured or killed.
Sure, our very own Trojan horse, if you could say. And what happened in that beach during the American Revolution? What happened to the beaches after?
Well, we don't know as much about them as we do about like Paul Revere his home is open to the public down in Boston. But all of their gravestones say that they were with Ethan Allen at Ticonderoga. So we know what they did the rest of the weekend.
Absolutely, that makes sense. And the anniversary celebrations of Beach's Run have been taking place in Castleton for years. And so you've shared an image with us on the front page of the Burlington Free Press from 1975, when a couple of Vermonters ran the 64 miles. So who were these runners?
Well, we've only done it every 50 years. So 1925, 1975, and now. And it's Friday, May 9th. And the runners include one who led he's in the photo, who led the run in 1975. That's Mike Canty. And he's leading the run again, 9 a.m., Saturday, May 10th at Castleton Village Green. And he'll end the races again at Hens Cove in Shoreham. And 50 years ago, he was accompanied by Mike Gallagher, who did the other half of the run, an Olympian, no longer with us, unfortunately. But Mike Canty still has good knees and hips, and he's a good runner today as well.
Great. Well, good for him for getting out there. He's running more on this weekend than I probably will my whole life. And you were saying when we were looking at this photo earlier, a little piece of your history is tied in as well. You said your mom was in that photo. Is that right?
Yeah. She and I were both part of the Castleton Bicentennial Committee 50 years ago, and so I'm still involved, you might say.
Yeah, that's incredible. What do you remember from that weekend?
I certainly remember that kickoff, the musket fire as Mike Canty started, and later that day we were in Skeensboro, which is now called Whitehall, New York, to take that from the family of Major Philip Skeen, who was British, and to try and steal whatever boats were there to bring north on the lakes for use in the crossing to get to Ty.
Wow. And you brought one more photo from a celebration past, this one 50 years before that, 1952, or 25, I should say.
Right.
And talk about this and how it kind of inspired some of the events taking place today.
Well, this is a little view of the panoramic, wide shot view that they took of the whole crowd there. And there's a triangle on the left where you can see there was a teepee that was part of float in their parade. And on the right, you have, it's hard to see, but a view of a settler with a cabin. Somebody, they're looking out from the doorway of this cabin on a float.
Wow, that's incredible. And you're incorporating something kind of like this in the festivities this weekend, is that right?
We really are. Basically, we're copying what they did in 1925, starting with a history parade and then having a gubernatorial proclamation read, and then in our case, they had a little pageant. We were having a stage dramatization of the Council of War, that last huddle of the Green Mountain Boys in Castleton before they went in different directions to wind up at the lakeshore and cross the lake and go into history.
Absolutely, and that's something that people can watch, right? Come and see.
Oh yeah. We're counting on a big crowd at Castleton, and Ticonderoga is going to have a large crowd the following day, Saturday, May 10th.
That's great, and you already touched on it some, but walk me through kind of the calendar of events for this weekend.
Well, the first thing on Friday evening is 6 p.m. step off for the history parade, led by a children's flag parade. The crowd portrait, sort of reminiscent of the panoramic one from 1925. And we'll have some tasteful souvenirs available, tokens and a cached image on custom postal cancels. And then that Green Mountain Boy stage dramatization of the Council of War hours before the seizing of Ticonderoga, where Major Herrick was sent in one direction, Major Beach in another, and a lot of them just went straight to Hens Cove in Shoreham from Castleton. And then at the end, we get solemn, and we're having an honor for the 11 burials that are right there in Castleton Village Cemetery, with a musket salute for the 11. And of course, the next day, we finish with the 9 a.m. kickoff of the Major Beach Run, which will be runners and even more cyclists actually making that entire route, all more than 50 miles. It's going to be to Lake Champlain.
Absolutely. Tell me a little more about this run. So nobody's doing the whole 64 miles, is that right?
Right, but we've got Mike Canty. He's back, and he's wonderfully enthusiastic about this. It's a happy memory for him, and we'll fire musket. He'll leave, and a moment later the bikes will leave and probably overtake him eventually, all the way out of town, and it goes to Rutland, as I say, Brandon, Middlebury, Whiting, Shoreham.
Absolutely. And if you want to bike or run yourself, are you allowed to join in the fun?
Yes, let us know if you can ahead of time, but at least show up at 9 a.m. for the start of the run on Saturday, May 10.
Absolutely. And you mentioned that there was going to be kind of a somber hail to the 11 soldiers in that cemetery. How did they die?
Oh, all different ways, not all,
sure,
disease or, shot in the war or something like that.
But these are Revolutionary War soldiers?
Right, yes, exactly right. Patriots, yep.
That's incredible.
Many of them Green Mountain Boys, so we'll put little Green Mountain Boy flags at each grave.
That's great. And I already mentioned that you were participating in 1975 when they did the original one. What's it like to kind of come back and do this again?
Well, this time I'm not on the local committee only. I'm on Vermont's 250th anniversary commission. And so I'm looking at this from, sort of the big perspective, what's been going on in Bennington with their early May weekend of events, and this, and I'm going to be at Ticonderoga on the evening of May 10th and see this through Crown Point the following day.
Absolutely. This is like your Super Bowl, but it only happens once every 50 years.
Exactly. So we lose all the momentum, and we have to get everybody informed again, about this wonderful, wonderful role that Castleton had in world history, really.
Thank you so much for joining us today. And if you want to get involved, that's May 9th and 10th. That's this weekend. All the information you need is on your screen, so be there or be square. And that's our program for today. Thank you always to the patriotic crew behind the scenes here at WCAX. This is Across the Fence. Have a good one.